Hello and welcome to LaRosa Reads. I'm Denise LaRosa, and today I'm going to take you along with me on my journey of reading like my favorite TV characters. Let's talk books. Yay! I am super duper excited for this video today. I am a huge fan of Book It Queen on IG, also known as Kayla, and I was even more thrilled to discover that she's a fellow Pittsburgher like me. One of the things that I love the most about following her IG account is that she is a lover of the 90s. It's so nostalgic going down memory lane through her posts. And some of the content she created inspired me to create this video for all of you. So Kayla has taken some of her favorite 90s sitcoms and asked the question, what would these sitcom characters be reading? So for you guys, I have decided to take a look at all of these sitcoms, pick the character that most fits my personality, my favorite character because they are most like my vibe, and pick one of the three recommendations that Book It Queen gives us and read the book. And then find out if that book holds true for me. Do I think that particular character would enjoy that book? Did I enjoy the book? We are going to find out. So, journey with me on this reading vlog to read like my favorite TV characters.
What do you want for breakfast?
Cereal.
Cereal what?
Cereal and bananas.
Cereal bananas what?
Cereal, bananas, and milk.
Cereal bananas milk what?
In a bowl.
Oh, my love bug, Rudy Huxtable. A lot of my friends, even to this day, say, "You are Rudy. Rudy is you." Well, the words precious and adorable are often used to describe Rudy Huxtable. And guess what? She's wide-eyed, innocent, and, my favorite part, a little sassy. And she got the most attention from her parents, according to her siblings. But from one youngest sibling to the other, that may not necessarily be the case. So I'm going to read, or I have been reading, like Rudy Huxtable by reading Brown Girl Dreaming by Jacqueline Woodson. I have read If You Come Softly by Jacqueline Woodson, and that's one of my all-time favorite books ever. I have about 40% or so left of this book to go. This is a memoir in verse. It is considered a middle grade novel for that age range, but yet it is timeless, ageless. All of us have been young, and specifically to be a brown girl and follow this life of a brown girl dreaming, finding her purpose, being able to express some of these lived experiences that are universal, but yet very deeply personal and true to Jacqueline Woodson. It's just an amazing reading experience. She is truly a gifted writer, probably one of my all-time favorite authors in regards to her talent and her ability to express herself in prolific ways and profound ways. It's just amazing. So I love, probably my favorite verse is Herzl Street. Herzl Street is about the moment when Jacqueline Woodson, who had been living with her siblings and her mom in Greenville, South Carolina, where her mom is originally from, they're now moving to New York. And they had originally been living in Columbus, Ohio when they were a nuclear family. Her mom and dad split up, which led mom back to South Carolina with family for a while. Yet she found a place for them in New York, Brooklyn to be exact. And so this was really hard for the children, including Jacqueline, who was the youngest at the time. It was hard for them because they had grown accustomed to Southern living, their grandmother and grandfather She was the baby, the youngest in the family, and while her mom was in New York finding a place, she found herself pregnant, and Jacqueline found herself no longer being the youngest. So it was wild to read about that, because Herzl Street is about this moment when some of her relatives and family friends are living in New York. They being Jacqueline, her siblings, and her mom, end up moving in close to those people. And so it just felt like she had a piece of Greenville in New York. And so it felt like home for the first time. And I just love that, the way she articulates it, expresses it. She says, so they were red dirt and pine trees. They were fireflies in jelly jars, a lemon chiffon ice cream cones. They were laughter on hot city nights, hot milk and on cold city buildings, good food and good times, fancy dancing and soul music. They were family. So good. So I just finished this gem. I can say I totally see why this has become an instant classic. I think Jacqueline Woodson is at her best with this and has made her life story, this memoir, so tangible and so accessible and filled with so many different emotions. And I think she couldn't have done it better, other than making the choice that she did to write it in verse. I think that Rudy Huxtable would have loved this. She was an intellectual, she was vivacious, she was a risk taker, she was also inquisitive, curious, and the youngest, much like Jacqueline Woodson. So I think, and Jacqueline Woodson was the youngest for a while, but long enough to connect with Rudy Huxtable. I think there's so much for me, also in my birth order being the youngest, that we learn from our older siblings, and we're kind of like in the background taking it all in, and then we light up the world. And I feel like Jacqueline Woodson embodies that in her own story and in this wonderful, wonderful work of art.
You looking for me?
You know I am.
Tia Landry is my favorite character on Sister Sister. She's described as being honest, responsible, and mature. She is a straight A student and can lose her honest and responsible credit when she is around boys or scheming. All right, it is Saturday night. I have been reading The Voting Booth, and according to Book It Queen, I am reading like Tia Landry of Sister Sister. I definitely am getting Tia Landry vibes from Marva, who is our female protagonist. She is very much about voting rights and straight A students at a private school. We have Duke, who lives in her neighborhood but attends the public school. They run into each other on election day at their polling place. And Duke is running into some issues with voting, and Marva steps up her game because she's passionate about the young vote and getting young people out to vote. So she wants to make sure that Duke gets a chance. This turns into a day that they spend together, and they were complete strangers. Now, as they're spending time together, trying to get Duke in a position to vote, and Marva has another issue that arises, and he's helping her out. So as they're spending the day with each other, they end up learning more about each other and growing fond of each other. So it gives me Tia Landry vibes in that Tia was very much like an academic and passionate about her studies and could sometimes get distracted by boys. And I can't say that Marva's getting distracted by Duke and another boy that shows up in this story, but you definitely can see where Marva's personality is put to the test. She's getting stretched to see herself in different ways and discover herself in new ways through her connection to Duke. I am finding this book to be okay. You know, like the pacing's all right. It's fun. It's light. It's, you know, the YA category. So very simple. And, you know, so it's a good time. I'm not wowed by the book, but I'm entertained nonetheless. Like, I don't feel like, ugh, I can't read another page. But it's very simple in the writing, in the storyline, and like just the delivery of the story. So like if you're looking for something a little more nuanced, you're not going to get that. So I'm excited to finish it up. I am about, what is this? Like maybe not quite halfway done. So I'm hoping to finish it soon. Yay to the voting booth. It's cute. So I have finished The Voting Booth, and it was a good time. It was a solid 3-star read. It was very true to the YA category. I appreciate that. It was a feel-good time. Everything was wrapped up and tied up with a bow. So if you're wanting a very simple, good time, fun read, everything ended the way I expected it to. There were no surprises. I do wish that Marva and Duke had different names. I don't know why. I just don't think they look like a Marva and a Duke. So it's kind of a little grating as I'm reading the book. Not only do they not look it on the cover, but their personalities don't give me Duke and Marva vibes at all. So, you know, that's like nitpicky of me. But overall, it was fine. I could totally see Tia reading a book like this, like I had shared earlier in the check-in. And, you know, it is what it is. I'm glad I read it. It was a solid, good time. Nothing overwhelmingly amazing, but nothing bad. So it is what it is.
Oh, eggplant.
Back off, it's mine.
I don't want to eat it. I want to say it.
Oh, well, that makes sense.
It's an acting technique. If you remove all language except for one word, it forces you to use that one word to express all emotion. Eggplant. 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 Eggplant.
Living Single. What a show. Out of all of the main characters, I believe I am most like Sinclair Jones for many reasons. She had the approachable personality that was the complete opposite of strong-willed Maxine. And while Regine was out there pushing her to date men with money, Sinclair was more of the type to like a man who, aside from just being kind, was good. Good to people, good to plants, good to animals. She was a little quirky, and I can relate to that. So let's see if I can relate to these reads. Y'all are probably going to get tired of seeing me with the head wrap and looking the way I look, but I'm chilling, y'all. I'm on a summer vacation, and I am currently reading What the Fireflies Knew. I am a little over halfway through, and I have to admit, this one definitely received a content warning, and for good reason. It opens with a very traumatic event. We are following KB, an 11-year-old or soon to be 11-year-old black girl who is just having traumatic life experiences, and she has an older sister named Nia. Long story short, they end up spending the summer with their grandfather, their granddaddy, whom they barely know. And so it's not like they have this warm relationship with him and are like, okay, we're with granddaddy this summer. Like, they don't know this man. And it starts off very awkward, very traumatic. And as I'm reading, I'm starting to really love Granddaddy. I felt a little apathetic towards him and almost a little angry towards him. Like, come on, show these girls some love. They've been through a lot. And little by little, I have grown to find him endearing and complicated. He's a complex character, and I'm giving him a chance. I really like him a lot at this point. KB has been through a lot, and therefore she is also a complicated character. And you find yourself like shaking your head like, come on, KB, why you gotta be like that towards your granddaddy and your big sis? But also understandably so, right? Like, she's been through a lot. I don't want to give any spoilers about that right now. And they are currently at a cookout. It's the 4th of July, and they're actually going to get to meet more family because Granddaddy is their maternal grandfather, so their mother's father. And they know very little about their mother's side of the family. She doesn't talk about them. She doesn't spend time with them. And apparently, I've just discovered she has some brothers. So the sisters are going to meet some family for the first time, which should be interesting. And we shall see what happens. Oh my. This book totally delivered. It tugged at the heartstrings. I did not expect such an emotional connection to the characters and the story, KB story. This was exquisite. This was beautiful. This was so good that I want to recommend it to my school to consider having it be a reading selection for an English class. It's full of lessons. It's full of rich history within, like, interwoven in a young girl's life. It's set in 1995, the summer of 1995, which I remember, and it's crazy that that's considered like historical. But nonetheless, there's so many layers to unpack in KB and her sister Nia's lives and the lives of the relatives and the people around her, that there's so much learning that could happen. There's so much learning that happened for me. The relationship between KB and her older sister is one that I struggled with throughout this book. And then there was this pivotal moment, climactic moment that made everything make sense and made me, there is a glare, made me understand them better and love them even more. These characters are lovable in unconventional ways. I read a Goodreads review where somebody said they DNF'd this because KB wasn't a likable child and was just really rude and nasty. And it's like, okay, she's experienced trauma, like trauma. Of course, she is complicated and difficult as a child because, again, she's experienced trauma. So hurt people, right? And I think her inner dialogue helps you to grow to love her, and you can read between the lines and better understand the choices she makes and the reasons behind her attitude. But it also makes her lovable and endearing, and you just want to wrap your arms around these girls and around Granddaddy. The mom's character was really interesting in that she was ever present, even though she's not a presence for most of the book. So I think Kai Harris did a phenomenal job of giving this mother depth to the point that you could still feel connected to her character, although she's not really a presence in most of the book. That was truly a gift because I still felt deeply connected to the mom. And wow, I am blown away by this book. I didn't have low hopes, like the bar wasn't low, but I also didn't have high hopes. I thought, okay, this will be fine. This will be a nice little read for me. It'll be a solid read. And it is a 5-star read for me, hands down. So poignant, so well done in so many ways, with the ways the characters were developed, the storyline, how it unfolded, the layers to the characters' stories, their background. It was very well done. Like, I am emotionally wrecked. So, good job, Kai. Good job. So, could I see our girl Sinclair reading this? Absolutely. Because Sinclair was like me. I mean, I am Sinclair. Sinclair is me. I know I said that about Rudy Huxtable, but like, Sinclair feels all the feelings. She wears her heart on her sleeve. She is a deeply emotional person and like emotionally connected to people and stories. I could see her having a box of Kleenex and just like bawling her eyes out, like sobbing in parts of this story. And it makes me wonder about Sinclair's story. I know that her mom appears in some episodes of Living Single. However, there's something about this story that makes me wonder, like, more about the character arc of Sinclair, if there are elements of this that she could relate to. Like, what was her relationship like with her dad? I don't remember ever hearing about her dad in any episodes of Living Single, and I watched every single one. Maybe my memory is failing me, but I almost wonder if Sinclair has personal connections to this story. Was her father a drug addict? Was her mom someone who went through a lot and made a lot of sacrifices to support Sinclair? I'm really curious. For some reason, I could just see Sinclair's own story connecting to KB's. Oh my gosh, like, this is a Sinclair vibe. I'm with it. I love it. And I'm so grateful I read this book.
Guys, we have to do something about Dad.
Listen, I've tried, but he likes that shirt.
No, I mean, we have to try to discourage this whole early retirement thing.
I thought you were all for it.
I was, but I've been thinking. If Dad has more time around the house, I'm the one he's going to be spending it with.
Why you?
I'm his favorite.
His favorite what?
His favorite child. I'm his little girl. I thought it was obvious.
The Fresh Prince of Bel-Air is one of my all-time favorite sitcoms, and I love me some Ashley Banks. She was the character who was closest to my age, which is probably what made her so endearing to me, and she was the youngest of the Banks siblings. She's described as being kind and independent with a rebellious spirit. She also wrestles with identity issues and tries to find her place in the world, like most of us youngest in the family. And she desires to break out of the stuffy Bel Air bubble. So Gianna and I are reading, and I am about halfway through Love Radio. Oh my gosh, y'all, like dazzling and satisfying are two words that come to me right now. This is such a satisfying read. It's such a sweet read. I am absolutely enamored by the two main characters, Prince and Danny. They are just lights to the world, and they're so fun and have such depth to them to be teenage characters, right? Like, I think sometimes YA novels or any novel that has teenage characters, they sometimes lack depth. And these characters are very much age and developmentally appropriate in the ways of being, right? They're not like overly mature, but they also have many layers to them that I think makes their love story all the more satisfying. Oh my gosh, I love it. I am flying through. Like, I literally just started and I'm on page 143, chapter 8, because it is that fun. I love the backstories of their families and how it's based out of Detroit. And both Danny and Prince have very different family backgrounds and circumstances, and they also have different interests too. I want to name that. Yet they just make sense together. They're a couple that makes perfect sense and complement each other in so many ways. And I'm here for it. I love that we start off with Prince having this like years-long crush on Danny. Like, we get straight to the point. Like, this is a situation where one of the love interests has always been crushing on the other one. So it's not like there's no lead up to them. Like, there's no lead up to Prince finding Danny attractive. Like, we know already this has been a crush of his for years. And there is, though, still that satisfying part of Danny not being aware of it and getting to know Prince for the very first time. So you get both sides to the romance of like someone discovering the other person while the other person in the relationship has always been paying attention. So I love that. I love so much I just love it. The writing is fun. The pacing is perfection. The friendship characters are great. I love how Danny has this complicated aspect to her life, this situation that happened to her, and we're not getting all the details up front. It's like this pivotal moment in her life is just interspersed throughout the story. So you get little droplets of it here and there to help you understand why Danny is approaching her relationship with Prince in the way that she is. And Prince doesn't know yet. I'm in this section. I'm at the point where Prince is being extra Prince. He is a gentleman, and he's aware that something's holding Danny back from truly just letting go and allowing herself to feel all the feelings. But he doesn't know what it is yet. We don't even, as readers, know what it is yet. We've got a good idea of where it's leading, but it hasn't all come out yet, and we're almost halfway through. So I appreciate that, and I don't need to know up front like all the details. I think it's nice the way that Ebony, the author, is giving us little driplets, little drops, little like bits and pieces to put the puzzle together. So good. So excited to keep going. I am in love with Love Radio. have strep throat. I've never been diagnosed with strep throat, and I've been a teacher for over 15 years, a mother for over 10, and some way, somehow, I got strep. No one in my family that we're aware of had it, but yet here I am. We had a wonderful time in Washington, D.C. I had finished reading Love Radio in Washington, D.C., and I was going to do a little vlog check-in in the hotel room, but I was starting to feel very ill with the strep throat thing. So I just did not have it in me to be seen on camera. I still don't have it in me, but I need to do this. I need to see this through. So Love Radio was sensational. It was so satisfying. The ending was great. I gave it 5 stars. The only qualm I have is that I feel like Prince was just a little too polished and perfect. Like the whole setup that he did for Danny at the bookstore, and like having her go to all of her favorite authors' books and then find a gift. It was like so romantic, but I'm also thinking, this is a senior in high school. Like, is this even possible for a young guy to be like that wise and thoughtful? Which I may be a little jaded. My high school years were not reflecting that as being possible for any young guy. But, you know, different strokes, different folks, different times. I did read on Goodreads where there were a few critiques of Danny and Prince in that they were a little too mature to be believed, like for it to be believable for young people. They just seemed to be just very sure of themselves, like self-assured, wise beyond their years. However, as a teacher who works in a pre-K through grade 12 school, it is possible. I know some very well put together young adults who are so much wiser than I was at their age, who have already discovered things I'm just now discovering in my 40s. So who am I to say that's impossible? But I mean, I still gave it 5 stars. It's just that it was really a bit of a stretch in my mind as I was reading it. I'm like, I'm reading this not thinking it's possible, but you know, who am I to say that it's impossible?
I don't want that type of person in my house. Oh, excuse me? What do you mean by that type of person? Okay, Tasha is a single mother trying to make it, just like me.
That criminal is nothing like you, Maya.
Joan, she just hooked up a stupid cable box. What?
Yeah, well, I don't want it or her in my house.
Oh, excuse me, I'm sorry. Now this is your house?
Yes!
Before she was on Blackish, she was on Girlfriends. Tracy Ellis Ross depicted the strong character Joan Clayton on Girlfriends. She's described as determined, loyal, and responsible. Joan is hyper-focused on getting what she wants, whether it's helping her friends, getting her dream case, or her man of the month. Joan always finds a way to succeed. Her tunnel vision, however, makes her stubborn.
Kimberly Rice! There's only one way to settle this thing once and for all. Be prepared to throw down. What? Come on, put him up. I'm ready for you.
Whitley, I'm not gonna fight you.
Oh, sucky now. You scared I might clock you?
A Different World was groundbreaking, and Kimberly, also known as Kim Reese, was Whitley Gilbert's roommate and daughter of Detective Clinton Reese from Columbus, Ohio. She was my favorite character, and since her family was not as rich as Whitley's, Kim paid for her education through scholarships and part-time employment at the Pit. She worked hard, she was very scholarly, and yeah, I think we might match up with these books. So, I have been reading and listening to the last 2 books of this vlog experience, whatever you want to call it. I am, how many pages? I am 80 pages into Gurl. And this book is inspired by the post that Kayla said would be a read of Joan the character from Girlfriends. So yeah, this is definitely a Joan book. I feel like Joan's character is not just existing in the times, but very much living in the time that she was living in and fully immersed in it and experiencing it. That she's not one to just, be living a time, but to also try to have a deeper understanding of the times that she lived in. And that's what this book reflects. It's a series of essays, a collection of essays about different poignant, profound, important moments that revolve around Black women. It even says in the subtitle, on womanhood and belonging in the age of Black girl magic. So talking about the age of social media and, the presidential election in America. The author is a writer who is from America but moved to London. I forget what part of America she's from, but she moved to London for her career and also for other reasons, much like a lot of Black artists in various time periods chose to leave America, thinking of James Baldwin, Josephine Baker, who felt more accepted and embraced in France and other countries around the world than they felt in their home country of America. She is finding that in London, England, that isn't necessarily the case. It's just a different side of the same coin. She actually says that. But she's just trying to make sense of different moments, such as the Black Panther movie and what that means for Black excellence and Black empowerment, Black girl, the hashtag Black Girl Magic, all of those pop culture moments that are deeper than moments, that actually are part of a movement to move us forward. So I could see Joan being into this. And I'm listening to The Beauty in Breaking, which is inspired by the character Kimberly from A Different World. It was hard to pick a character. Like, I could have technically picked Whitley. Like, Whitley was my favorite character in A Different World, but I wouldn't say that I'm like her. And I'm trying to select characters that I am most like. And so out of the characters in A Different World, Kimberly would probably be the character I'm most like, although I don't think I'm really like her, but I'm most like her out of the selection. So The Beauty in Breaking is by Dr. Michelle Harper. It's a memoir. She opens up, the pacing is like chef's kiss for me, because she does not spend 20 chapters explaining her childhood. Her childhood is literally one chapter, and it's full of trauma, full of so much that has shaped her into being the woman and the doctor she is. But we didn't need that to go on beyond the one chapter. She does a great job of summarizing it all, giving us a feel for what her life was like growing up in a wealthy yet dysfunctional household. So I loved that. Then she goes straight into medical school. She goes straight into being married and divorcing, and things are just moving along. And so the bulk of the memoir is about her work in emergency rooms, and also her attempting to climb the ladder as a Black professional in a white male dominated field, the medical field. So that's really the bulk of the memoir, what it's about. But in order to appreciate and understand her experience navigating the medical field as a Black woman, she gives you enough material about and enough background in an authentic way of who she is, where she came from before being a doctor, so that you can appreciate and understand better what she's going through and what she has overcome, and how that plays a role in how she navigates the challenges of being a doctor, a Black female doctor. Also, she's talking a lot about the patients, and she's very clear that she's using, pseudonyms, she's protecting identities and confidentiality. But she uses, I don't want to say uses, because that sounds opportunistic. She takes these real patient encounters, her real work with patients to help us uncover some inequities in our society, our American society, in the medical field, and biases that are had by medical professionals, and how, including herself, like I just listened to a part where she was like, look, I had this bias, and the social worker at the hospital had to, basically tell me about myself. And it gave me pause, and it's something that I'm still carrying with me today, and it happened so many years ago. So I'm really enjoying listening to it, and since I am under the weather, I really appreciate having this audiobook experience. I have been coloring while listening to the audiobook, and also bouncing back and forth between the audiobook, The Beauty in Breaking, and Gurl, 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 which I can't get Destiny Child's song, Gurl, out of my head, because she said that inspired the title. So I keep hearing it. But yeah, this is good. I think I'm going to take a nap again. I just woke up, and I think I'm going to take a nap and get back to reading. And I finished both Gurl, Gurl, Gurl and The Beauty in Breaking. Gurl, Gurl, Gurl was a solid 3-star read for me. It was a little all over the place in terms of these essays, right? So the author is a fashion editor, and I felt like she was bouncing from like memoir, introspection, like her story, to like a broader societal musing. And then she also had a couple of stories that were by other people, but it was like 2 or 3 of them out of 20. So I was like, you either should have had more than 2 or 3 contributors, or none at all. Like, this either needed to be your thing or everybody's thing, because it just felt disjointed in that way. It's like you were hearing the author's voice, and then all of a sudden here came this other person. So that was a little odd, but I appreciated her global perspective and offerings around the Black woman experience. I loved that she discussed Black girl magic beyond America, United States. I appreciated what Black girl magic can look like on the day-to-day in different industries, and in different spaces around the world. So I really think that was probably the best part, the best offering of this book. I also, even though I'm not really into the fashion industry, I did appreciate her discussing the fashion industry and how it has contributed to the broader conversations and shifts in how Black women are perceived in society and in pop culture. So yeah, I mean, it was okay. I mean, I'm not saying that it was a waste of time by any means, but it's definitely not going to be a very memorable reading experience for me like I thought it would be. And also, the last thing I'll say about it is there was so much talk about then current events, and I think I'm just not far away enough removed from it. You know, the global pandemic, the Trump presidency, you know, like it was just too close, but yet not close enough. Like, it just felt like old news. Yeah, it just felt like kind of old news, but too current to be considered old news. So it was just awkward news. So I think this book being read like in that current time, or years and years and years from now, when we've had time to process and have other experiences and then can reflect upon this era, I think will serve this book better. So there's that. Then I listened to the audio book of The Beauty and Breaking. Dr. Michelle Harper is just dynamite. What a dynamic woman, human being, physician, working in the emergency room. My brother is a physician assistant and was assistant director of an emergency department for VA hospitals. So she also did a lot of work towards the latter part of this book in a VA hospital. So I just felt really connected to her stories and the work that she was doing, because my brother is really passionate about his work and is so passionate about helping our veterans. My father's a Vietnam veteran, so you know, it just felt so close to home, and it was like really cool. I almost wish that she and my brother could meet each other, because I feel like they had that same passion and love and desire to do right by our veterans as far as healthcare is concerned. And her stories were very real. The pacing, like I said before, was just amazing. And of course the stories were real because they were, but the way she demonstrated how physicians can be experts and also very caring and comforting was amazing, because we tend to see, I'm speaking in general terms, I hate to generalize, but we tend to see physicians with that one side. We don't see them as like multifaceted, multi-layered, three-dimensional beings. We just see them as like almost like robotic, like and full of knowledge. But they also wear their hearts on their sleeves, you know, they're exposed to a lot. I mean, even with my own brother, like seeing him come home from, like, you know, because of HIPAA laws, he wouldn't say anything. So that's the other part too, right? That they have to keep all of their experiences to themselves, but to have to compartmentalize, like to do a shift in the ER, and then you're going out to dinner with your family and you have to like shift gears, and you may have been witness to something very traumatic, a death, you know, and the unimaginable. So to hear her inner dialogue was really important and special for me. So that is that. I have to say, first of all, I'm going to stop and just note that my oldest, Gianna, did my hair. I'm in between hair appointments because with the strep throat drama, I was like curled up in bed for hours and just kind of let my hair go. And she was like, honey, this is the best I can do for you. But she tried to help me out. So this experience has been amazing. I'm not a vloggy type of booktuber, but I just had to do this project. It was just following Book It Queen and her post. I was like, I gotta give this a try. And I'm so glad that I did. Out of all of the TV characters, I am most like, reading wise, Sinclair from Living Single. Can't say I'm too surprised, because personality wise, I have a lot of Sinclair in me. She reminds me of a young black version of Rose Nyland from the Golden Girls. But I'm also very, you know, I'm not saying she's unintelligent, but I have a more serious side, but I definitely have the quirky side to me. So I think it's pretty cool. Out of all the TV characters, I am most like Sinclair. I have read all of the books that Book It Queen thinks that Sinclair would read, and I loved all of them. So we're talking about The Girl with the Louding Voice, What the Fireflies Knew, Blackout, and The Wedding Date. And I loved all of them. So how cool. I wouldn't have predicted that. Maybe I would have said Rudy Huxtable or Ashley Banks. I don't know. But I think that's pretty fun. So I encourage you to try this out. It was a fun ride, and I'm happy I did it. Yay, all done.
This was an amazing reading experience and an amazing booktube content creating experience. I cannot thank Kayla, the Book It Queen, enough for her wonderful, fun content that just keeps me inspired and makes me smile and keeps me engaged in reading. What character do you think you read like? It could be any character from this sitcom. Maybe you have another sitcom that is your favorite and you have a character on there that you think you most vibe with. Let's talk about it in the comment section below. I am so excited to hear from you. This is a really fun question and conversation that we can have. So let's do this. And until next time, happy reading. Bye.